Welcome to Hard Script.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. We were at a friend's birthday party. Light music, small plates, surface-level conversations. One of those nights where nothing is supposed to happen, but everything shifts. Claire stood across from me, holding a wine glass like a prop. Her friends surrounded her, laughing too loudly at things that weren't funny. I had learned not to interrupt when she played host. I stood there, silent, attentive, like a well-trained background character. Someone asked how we handled spending time together with both our schedules. She didn't hesitate. She said, "Once a month is enough. Keeps it interesting." Everyone laughed. I smiled. But inside, something slowed. Once a month? We lived together, ate from the same fridge, slept in the same bed. I knew her coffee order, her meeting routines, her quiet Sunday rituals. And now I was hearing, in front of strangers, that my presence should be rationed? I didn't respond. Not then. Just nodded like I agreed. Like her sentence didn't split something open in the middle of my chest. That night, I didn't bring it up. We drove home in silence. She scrolled her phone the whole ride, legs crossed toward the window like I wasn't even in the car. The next morning, I started something new. I followed her schedule. Exactly. One visit a month. No texts in between, unless she initiated. No, how was your day? No, want anything from the store. I became minimal. And for a while, she didn't notice. She moved through the weeks as if nothing had changed. Her days were full. Her nights were loud. Brunches, Pilates, gallery events, all documented, all filtered. And me? I observed. I didn't withdraw out of anger. I withdrew out of precision. She said once a month was enough. I gave her exactly that. The first time I skipped our usual Friday dinner, she didn't react. Second time, she made a vague comment, something about how work must be insane. By the third time, her tone had changed. She asked if everything was okay. I said, "It's perfect. Just keeping things interesting." She paused, almost caught the echo. Almost. But she didn't ask again. So I kept going. I stopped leaving notes on the counter. Stopped offering to drive her places. Stopped checking in on the little things. Headaches, coffee, the charger she always misplaced. She started noticing. Not all at once, but in fragments. A forgotten errand. A missed goodnight. The silence where warmth used to live. And still, I didn't explain. Because explanation implies negotiation. And I was done negotiating my presence. Her friends noticed first. Asked why she was showing up alone. Why I wasn't around anymore. She brushed it off. Said I was just busy. They believed her. But she didn't. Because deep down, she knew. This wasn't distance. This was a shift. And it wasn't temporary. It was the beginning. Not of revenge. Not of drama. Of recalibration. And in that recalibration, I found clarity. I wasn't disappearing. I was responding. And soon, silence would be the only sound she'd hear from me. 3 weeks into my new schedule, I ran into someone I hadn't expected. Jared. He worked with Claire. We'd crossed paths at a few events. Always polite. Always surface level. That afternoon, I saw him in line at the coffee shop near my office. He spotted me first. "Alex," he said, with that tone people use when they think they're about to deliver a compliment, but end up revealing too much. "Man, you're a legend." I raised an eyebrow. "Legend?" He laughed. "Yeah, Claire always says how independent you are. That she loves how you give her space. Lets her breathe. Most guys wouldn't be cool with their girlfriend doing her own thing." I just nodded. He didn't realize what he'd said. But I did. "She says you give her space." That wasn't admiration. That was justification. And just like that, the cracks I'd suspected were confirmed. She wasn't just detached. She was reframing me. To others, to herself. I wasn't a partner. I was a convenience. A placeholder she could praise publicly while rewriting privately. I paid for my coffee and walked out before he could say anything else. That night, I watched her from across the kitchen. She was on a call, pacing, laughing at something I wasn't a part of. I didn't interrupt. Didn't ask. But something changed. That conversation with Jared wasn't just noise. It was a signal. I realized I had become a character in her version of the story. Not the lead. Not even the conflict. Just background, static, decoration. And that was the first hit. Not a scream. Not a betrayal. Just a quiet realization that I had been redefined without consent. So I listened more closely after that. Not to what she told me, but to what she told others. She started saying things like, "Alex is super chill. He doesn't get jealous." Or, he's not really into all the couple stuff, which I actually love. But she was wrong. I was into all of it. I just wasn't into begging for it. There's a difference. One night, I watched her post a picture of dinner, a plate I cooked, a bottle I opened. No tag, no mention, just the illusion of solitude, curated carefully. I didn't ask why, because I already knew. I wasn't the audience anymore. I was behind the camera. She wanted the glow of partnership without the weight of presence. And I was becoming lighter by the hour. Not in sadness, in strategy. Because when someone reduces you to space, you don't fight for closeness. You redesign your orbit. That weekend, I made other plans. Didn't tell her. Didn't lie. Just lived. When she asked where I'd been, I said, nowhere important. It landed like a stone. Because suddenly, the one she thought she could overlook had become unpredictable. And people don't fear distance. They fear unpredictability. That's when control starts to slip. And in her silence, I heard the first tremor of that slip. I didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. I just listened. And waited. Because the shift had started. And soon, the weight of her own choices would return to her hands. The thing about silence is, it hears everything. After that encounter with Jared, I stopped asking questions. I didn't need answers. I needed data. So I watched. Her phone was always face down. Always buzzing at the same time every night. I never touched it. I didn't need to. Her habits told me more than her words ever did. She had patterns. Claire was a creature of routine. Same gym, same brunch spot, same group chats. But lately, new inconsistencies had crept in. Unexplained absences. Canceled plans with vague reasons. Weekend mornings where she said she was running errands, but came back 3 hours later, makeup smudged, and eyes too alert. So I started logging things, not obsessively. Just enough to track the timeline. One night, while she was in the shower, I glanced at her laptop left open on the couch. Not snooping, just verifying. The tabs were open: Instagram, Pinterest, Google Docs, and one minimized window. I clicked it. A Gmail draft. No name. Just a sentence. I can't keep pretending this is only casual. The cursor blinked at the end of it. No recipient. No send. Just a confession in limbo. She came out minutes later, hair wrapped in a towel. Said something about ordering Thai. I nodded, as if I hadn't just read the emotional breadcrumb of a second life. I didn't confront her. Because what would I say? Ask her who it was? She'd lie. Ask her if I was enough? She'd deflect. I didn't need confirmation from her. I already had the truth. Later that week, she left her iPad in the kitchen. Notifications lit up while she was upstairs. I didn't open anything. I just read the previews. Last night was, can't stop thinking about. And from her, in response. Next time, somewhere less public. That was all I needed. Not to rage. Not to accuse. To act. The next morning, I changed the passwords to my accounts. Spotify. Netflix. The ones she piggybacked on. I removed her from shared calendars. Canceled our shared meal subscription. Small things. Invisible things. She didn't notice at first. But the edges were starting to fray. She asked why the password didn't work for Hulu. I said I reset everything for security reasons. She nodded. Didn't dig. Because she was too preoccupied managing two narratives. The one she lived with me, and the one she nurtured somewhere else. But I had stopped being a participant. I was now the observer. A mirror she hadn't realized was reflecting everything. And while she posted selfies and stories about self-care and independence, I was preparing my exit. Not with a suitcase. With strategy. Every document that had both our names, gone. Every bill I covered, now separated. I checked the lease. My name. Not hers. The car. Mine. The utilities. Mine. Her life, for all its aesthetic independence, was built on my infrastructure. She forgot that. And I didn't remind her. Because I wasn't just gathering evidence. I was reclaiming position. Not to punish. To prepare. She once said, once a month is enough. Now she'd learn what none at all feels like. Not through drama. Through precision. And the more I saw behind the curtain, the less I cared about what was on stage. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was ready. Because truth doesn't demand a reaction. It demands a decision. And mine was already made. It started on a Thursday. No warning. No note. No final conversation. I just didn't come home. My phone was turned off. Not silenced, off. Not because I was hiding. Because I was done being accessible. I booked a hotel across the city. Nothing dramatic, Nothing expensive. Just distance. Quiet, clean, anonymous. Claire texted that night. Where are you? I didn't respond. She called twice. Then 3 times. Each call rang out to voicemail. Then came the real panic, the tone shift. The "are you okay" messages, the "this isn't funny" follow-ups. But I stayed silent. I wasn't missing. I was watching. From the outside. Her posts that evening were normal, filtered food, wine glass in frame, captioned with something vague and poetic. But behind that, her life had been punctured. She just didn't know how deep the hole was yet. By the second day, she called my job. They said I'd taken vacation time, which I had. Strategically, she tried friends. Most didn't answer. I prepped them, told them not to engage if she reached out. No explanations. Just distance. On the third day, she came to my office. I wasn't there. She checked my location through a shared app, but I'd already disabled that. She sent an email. Just one line. What are you doing? I didn't reply. I knew what I was doing. I was resetting everything. Back at the hotel, I listed the apartment for sublet. Changed all banking logins. Redirected my mail. Packed only what mattered. No ceremony. No drama. No trace. By day 4, I saw her post a photo of our dog. Alone, no caption. The comments asked where I was. She ignored them. But behind that silence, I saw it. The control slipping. She couldn't curate this. Couldn't package it. Because I was gone. Not emotionally. Physically. And she had no map. I didn't block her. Didn't delete her. That would have given her the performance she wanted. Instead, I became unlocatable. That's what people fear most. Not conflict. Absence. I moved into a short-term rental with nothing familiar. No shared objects. No echoes of her voice. I went to the gym at night. Worked from co-working spaces. Ate alone. Slept alone. And for the first time in months, I felt presence, my own. She sent one last message. If you don't talk to me, we're over. I stared at the screen and smiled because she thought silence was punishment. It wasn't. It was the answer. She just didn't like what it said. She had built a world where she dictated tempo. When we saw each other, when we didn't. How close I could stand, how long I could stay. Now the pendulum had swung, and she had nothing to grab onto. No clue where I was. No idea who I was becoming. She had always assumed I'd orbit her forever. But I wasn't circling anymore. I was gone, and the only sound left was hers. I didn't need to say his name. I already knew it. Jared, the guy from the coffee shop. From the messages. From the background of a photo she once accidentally posted, then deleted 30 minutes later. Not quick enough. I saw it. Screenshot. Saved. It wasn't jealousy that drove me. It was clarity. Claire thought she was balancing both lives. That she was too clever, too subtle. But the thing about subtlety is, it doesn't hold up under pressure. I didn't dig into Jared's life out of revenge. I researched him like a project. Clean. Focused. Clinical. LinkedIn gave me the frame. Tech consultant. Contract-based. Instagram gave me the colors. Trips. Shoes. A dog that wasn't his. Smiles that looked like mine used to. Facebook filled in the cracks. Family. Friends. Engagement a few years ago. Broken off. Reddit finished it. He posted anonymously, but not carefully. Complained about corporate oversight, NDA violations, and, most interesting, early access programs. Tech forums don't forget. They archive. One specific comment caught my attention. A throwaway account boasting about demoing software ahead of launch. He named the company. The client wasn't supposed to be public yet. I built the timeline. Matched Jared's post to the company's announcement. Then I matched his contract dates from LinkedIn. It aligned. Violation. I packaged everything. Screenshots. Timestamps. Links. No signature. No fingerprints. Just a quiet email from a temporary account. Sent directly to the company's compliance department. Not a threat. Not a claim. Just a breadcrumb trail. And I waited. 2 days later, Jared locked his Twitter. His LinkedIn vanished. Then, a post from one of his buddies surfaced. Cryptic, but clear. Some people think they're untouchable. Life has a way of correcting that. That night, Claire posted a quote on her story. Loyalty is rare. If you find it, keep it. No mention of me. No mention of him. But I knew. Something cracked. And I didn't even lift a finger. She didn't know it was me. Would never know. Because I didn't act out of anger. I acted out of design. He stepped into something he couldn't handle. The illusion that I was out of the picture. But I wasn't out. I was above. watching from a level they couldn't see. Claire thought the game was between us. She didn't realize I'd rewritten the rules while she was still trying to bluff. I didn't destroy Jared. I just opened a door and let his own words walk him out. I didn't even watch the fallout. Didn't need to. I saw it in her posture, in the sudden drop-off of photos, the quietness, the new quotes, healing, growth, boundaries. She wasn't speaking to anyone. She was unraveling, and I wasn't angry. I was still, because this wasn't revenge. This was removal, strategic, precise, final. And while they scrambled to adjust their lies, I had already moved into a different reality. No more monitoring, no more proving, no more reactions. She had chosen a path. Now she was walking it, alone. And I was just getting started. The thing about truth is, it doesn't need to scream. It leaks. Quiet. Slow. Like water through drywall. Claire always curated her image. That was her skill. Her feed was polished. Her captions sounded profound. Her circle? Tight. Stylish. Loud. But behind every perfect post, there's always a fracture. And one day, that fracture shows up to brunch. It started with her friends. They didn't block her. They didn't unfollow. They just stopped commenting. Stopped reacting. One by one, the flames around her dimmed. Not gone. Just distant. Like they knew something, but didn't say it. Maybe they heard things. Maybe Jared talked before he disappeared. Maybe someone recognized patterns they'd ignored before. Or maybe silence spreads faster than stories. I didn't have to do anything. The system corrected itself. Claire began overposting. Not just photos. Mantras. Memes about betrayal, strength, starting over. People repost that kind of thing when they want to control the narrative. When they're losing it. I watch from a burner account. Not to gloat. To study. She was trying to become the victim of a story she wrote herself. But the algorithm doesn't care about your intentions. It only echoes what gets traction. And her traction was slipping. A few weeks later, I bumped into someone from her work at a coffee shop. Small talk turned sideways. She asked casually, "You and Claire still together?" I paused. Sipped my drink. Haven't spoken in a while. The look in her eyes told me she knew more than she said. Apparently, Claire had taken time off. Mental reset, they called it. The office vibe had shifted. Rumors, maybe. Nothing direct. But in that world, whispers are louder than truths. She tried to rebuild. New friends and photos. New events. New gym. But the comments were different. Polite. Sparse. And sometimes, pointed. Under one of her posts, a mutual friend wrote, "You really thought no one would notice?" No one liked the comment. But no one deleted it either. It stayed. A scar left in pixels. Claire once told me reputation is everything. That perception can be managed. But control isn't the same as respect. And respect, once lost, doesn't come back dressed the same. She tried to reconnect with old faces. Coffee invites. Heart emojis. Some responded. Most didn't. Because no one wants to be associated with a collapse, especially when it's self-inflicted. The woman who once walked into rooms like she owned them now entered like she borrowed time. People noticed. The change. The nervous laugh. The overdressed apologies. And the silence that followed her like perfume. But I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. When someone burns the bridge, you don't swim back. You build elsewhere. And from where I stood, quiet, distant, unseen, I could feel the shift. She wasn't just losing people. She was losing herself. And the only thing louder than her silence was mine. Some people fear confrontation. Claire never did. What she feared was being invisible. And now, she was not blocked, not erased, just quietly excluded. Her name no longer echoed in the circles she once dominated. Invites stopped arriving. DMs slowed. Phone calls became echoes she left on speaker, pretending not to care. But I knew her. Claire wasn't built for silence. She needed to be seen, validated, desired. And now, her world was mirrors with no reflections. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. I simply watched the shift. She started reaching out to anyone. Old college friends, gym trainers, distant cousins, people she hadn't spoken to in years. Her messages all read the same. "Hey stranger." But everyone could read the real line underneath. "Please remind me I still exist." And they didn't. They responded out of politeness. Short, shallow, then vanished. Because nothing repels people like quiet desperation. I saw her once. At a small art exhibit I used to frequent. She didn't see me. She was alone. No makeup. Oversized hoodie. Hair in a rushed bun. Looking not lost, just untethered. She lingered near a painting of a woman staring into a foggy field. Claire stood there too long. I wondered if she recognized herself in the frame. She left without taking a single photo. That's how I knew it was real. There was no audience left to perform for. I wasn't hiding from her anymore. I just existed in a different layer of the world. Same city, same oxygen, different coordinates. Sometimes I'd walk past places we used to love. The bakery with the almond croissants. The park bench near the West Fountain. She never appeared, but traces of her did. Graffiti lines in a notebook I once gifted her. A jacket we both wore. A song on a passing car radio. Not memories. Footnotes. I heard she went to therapy. Someone said she cried during a group session. That she mentioned abandonment. But abandonment implies someone let go. And I hadn't. I just stopped holding on. Her therapist asked her to write closure letters. She sent one to my work email. I didn't open it. Didn't need to. Because closure isn't something you get from others. It's the sound of your own door closing. And staying closed. Her mother called me once. Left a voicemail. Soft, confused. She's not herself lately. I don't know what happened. Neither did Claire. Because the truth is, nothing happened. I didn't explode. Didn't expose. Didn't attack. I evaporated. And when someone disappears without violence, it's harder to frame them as the villain. Claire had no story to spin. Just a blank page where I used to be. She'd stare at it, waiting. But the ink never returned. And in that silence, she finally heard something she'd never noticed before. The sound of her own emptiness. There are moments when silence becomes unbearable, not because of what it lacks, but because of what it reflects. Claire reached that point. She texted. Once. Then again. I didn't answer. She called. Once. Then 3 times in a row. Voicemail filled with hesitation, a forced calm. I just want to talk. Nothing crazy. Just clarity. But closure isn't something you request. It's something you survive. A week later, I saw her. Not by accident. She knew where I'd be. A small rooftop cafe I visited on Saturdays. She arrived dressed like the version of herself I once knew. Neat, elegant, soft tones. But something was off. Too curated. Like she was playing a role without a script. She walked up, cautious. I didn't move. She sat. Didn't speak for the first minute. Then it came, the monologue. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a stream. How things got confusing. How Jared wasn't serious. How she felt abandoned. I listened. Not to her words, to her eyes. They darted. Desperate. Searching for reaction, permission, anything. She reached for my hand halfway through. I didn't pull away. But I didn't respond either. Just stillness. She asked if we could restart. I didn't nod. Didn't shake my head. Just blinked. That silence. It broke her more than anger ever could. Because for the first time, she wasn't performing against a wall. She was performing against a mirror. And what she saw looking back was nothing. No fury. No heartbreak. No love. Just distance. I waited until she finished. Then stood up. She asked, "That's it?" I looked at her. Not with hate. Not with regret. Just clarity. And I said, "I'm not angry. I'm done." Then walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't check if she cried. Didn't care if she stayed. Because it wasn't about punishment. It was about presence. And mine was no longer available. Later that night, I found a new message from her. Unread. Then deleted. Because when you step out of a fire, you don't reach back in to save the matchbox. Claire wasn't evil. She was careless. With time. With trust. With truth. And now she wanted to rebuild the ruins she created, with me as foundation. But I wasn't there anymore. I wasn't stone she could step on. I was air she couldn't catch. She once said, "Love is effort." But effort too late is just noise. And all I heard now was silence. The kind that frees. The kind that finishes. Collapse isn't always sudden. Sometimes it's a slow unthreading. One stitch at a time. Claire had always held herself together with tension, performance, control, attention. But when those threads snapped, there was nothing underneath. After our final meeting, she spiraled. Quietly at first. I didn't check her socials. But mutuals talked. And they didn't whisper anymore. Her job? Gone. Not fired, just phased out. She took a leave. Never came back. The yoga studio she promoted every week? Stopped tagging her. The brunch group she once led? Now met without her. There were no explosions. Just absence. One day, I walked by her building. Not on purpose. Habit, maybe. I noticed the lights were off. Curtains drawn. Mailbox overflowing. Some people say loneliness is loud. They're wrong. It's quiet. So quiet it buzzes. She tried re-entering society through smaller doors. Book clubs. Volunteering. Networking events. But people see collapse. Even when it's dressed well. Especially when it tries too hard. At one gallery opening, she was overheard introducing herself as a writer. She never wrote. She was grasping for an identity, a title, something to hold. But the more she reached, the less people reached back. I heard she moved back with her sister for a while. They'd never been close. And within weeks, they weren't speaking. Something about boundaries. Mood swings. The truth is, when someone falls from grace, grace doesn't cushion them. It watches. From a distance. Her mother called me again. I didn't answer. Voicemail said, "She's not well. If you could just..." But I couldn't. Because I wasn't part of the collapse. I was the chapter before it. And chapters don't crawl back into the book. Claire started posting again. But differently. Photos of coffee cups. Rain. Empty sidewalks. Captions like, "Some days are harder than others." But no one engaged. Not because they hated her. Because they'd moved on. That's the part no one warns you about. When you fall, people don't push. They just step aside. She wasn't hated. She was irrelevant. And irrelevance is colder than blame. Because you can fight blame. You can't fight being ignored. I saw her one last time. At a downtown market. She was buying fruit. Alone. Pale. Thin. She looked up. Our eyes met. And I felt nothing. No pity. No rage. No spark. Just distance. She didn't speak. Neither did I. Because some goodbyes don't echo. They just dissolve. And in that moment, I realized. Her collapse wasn't my closure. My closure happened long before. When I stopped needing to be the villain or the hero. When I chose silence. And silence stayed loyal. Claire wasn't falling anymore. She had landed. And the ground didn't catch her. It just stopped beneath her. Some endings don't explode. They just arrive. Like winter creeping in overnight. Quiet. Inevitable. Months passed since I last saw Claire. I had moved. New apartment, new routine, new silence. A better one. The air was different. Cleaner. My thoughts weren't echoing against what-ifs anymore. They just settled. One evening, I returned from a run. Doorstep. Package. No name. Just handwriting I recognized too well. I didn't take it inside. I opened it right there. Inside, a book. Hardcover. Blank pages, except the first. Her note. I wrote nothing. Because I said too much. And meant too little. No name. No plea. Just ink. I placed the book on the steps. Closed the door behind me. Didn't look back. Not because I was angry. Because I was done performing. Weeks later, a mutual friend mentioned Claire moved out of state. Fresh start, they said. But fresh starts don't come from geography. They come from gravity, and how much you've released. I had released everything. That version of me, the one who waited, wondered, tolerated, he no longer existed. I had gone back to music. Late nights. Improvised chords. Hands on strings instead of regrets. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. I saw a post once. Claire's, I assume. A black square. No caption. No likes. That's when I knew. She had run out of performances. And all that remained was her. I never blocked her. Didn't need to. She stopped reaching out. Eventually, even the shadows stopped following. Closure, I learned, isn't dramatic. It's not a scream or a slam or a sudden exit. It's the slow deletion of someone's voice in your mind. It's the ability to walk through familiar places and feel unfamiliar peace. And peace, real peace, doesn't announce itself. It arrives when you've stopped waiting for it. Final scenes aren't cinematic. They're quiet, like the sound of your own breath after a long dive. I remember the last thing I ever said to her. Not in voice, not in text, in presence. It was that day at the cafe. She had asked, "That's it?" And I'd replied, "I'm not angry. I'm done." But if I had to leave her with one last line now, one last whisper she'd carry into her silence, it would be this. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. No echo. No return. Just air. Just distance. And in that distance, finally, I found myself. Not as her lover. Not as her lesson. But as someone she couldn't reach anymore. Because the most powerful goodbye isn't the one she hears. It's the one she realizes, too late. been through it. When they crossed a line, and you made sure they felt it.